Testify is properly seated?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So, hearing that, we shall proceed. And now we are back on the record. Those just joining us, welcome. This is the 30th Legislature's Committee of the Whole here at St. Croix in the Fritz Lawetz Conference Room to hear the proposal, work and operating agreement, between Atlantic Basin Refining Holdings LLC and Inc. and the government of the Virgin Islands. And we just heard from the Attorney General, the Honorable Vincent Fraser, with his proposal to the Senate, and now we're going to hear now from the principals of Atlantic Basin Refining Holdings and Incorporated LLC and Inc. Forgive me, with their testimony about the proposal. And I want to take the time, gentlemen, to welcome all of you to St. Croix. Thanks for being here and for coming to be a part of this very important hearing this evening. So you're now recognized, whoever has been designated to be the lead, you're now recognized to present your testimony.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Honorable Sean Michael Malone, President of the 30th Legislature of the Virgin Islands, and Honorable Senators of the 30th Legislature, honored guests and testifiers, and good afternoon to all the people of the Virgin Islands, or good night, to all the people of the Virgin Islands attending today's hearing in person, via TV, radio, and live stream on the internet. My name is Mark Eckert, and I'm excited to sit here before you today as Managing Director for Legal and Governmental Affairs for Atlantic Basin Refining. Our appearance before the 30th Legislature today marks one of the final steps toward ABR's closing of its purchase of Hovensa LLC, inclusive of the Hovensa refinery and all related contracts and assets. This has indeed been a long road for ABR and its team, which includes refinery and marketing executives, refinery process engineers, chemical engineers and management, international crude oil and petroleum product experts, refinery and marketing executives, brownfield specialists, and a strong network of Virgin Islands professionals. Each of ABR's team members have spent their entire careers in the area of their expertise, and ABR therefore has a high degree of expertise in international energy markets, refining, and marine logistics. Certain of our team members who live and work on St. Croix have had good business relationships with Hovensa in the past. Accordingly, ABR's team has a strong working knowledge.
Excuse me, Attorney Eckert. The Chair recognizes Senator Clifford Graham for a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just inquiring if you plan to put all the testifiers on the
Oh yes, you know, you're right. Thank you very much, my able colleague. You know, schedule don't miss much. You good. Thank you for that. I'm sorry, gentlemen. I'm very sorry about that, but you do have to be sworn in like the others were, okay? And once you have done the oath of office, then just as we did in the first round, each of you will have to say your names for the record for this, and I'll refer to the correct spelling, okay? And if I my cheat sheet. Will all of you please raise your right hand, and after I say my statement, then you can say yes or no. Do each of you solemnly affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to give to the Committee of the Whole is to the best of your knowledge, is the whole truth, nothing but the truth? So help you God? Yes. Yes. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Please have a seat. Now, sorry, Attorney Ecker, but from your right over, say your name, if the spelling is needed, please do so for the stenographer, and then you can resume your testimony.
Sure. Mark Eckert, Mark with a K, last name E-C-K-A-R-D.
Robert Moore, M-O-O-R-E.
William Forster. Forster is F-O-R-S-T-E-R. William Creighton, spelled C-R-E-I-G-H-T-O-N. William Creighton, C-R-E-I-G-H-T-O-N.
Say who you're with.
Samsung Engineering.
Is that everyone?
Keith Gautreaux, Sun Constructors, Gautreaux, Gautreau.
And there's one more to the
Stephen Schmitz, Stephen with a B, SCHMITZ.
Is that everyone? No. Okay.
John Thomas, THMOAS. I'm an Executive Managing Director, ABR.
David Roberts, ROBERTS, Sun Constructors VI. I'm the owner.
Okay. Gentlemen, I apologize for the very limited space. I know this is a little unusual, but I thank you for your cooperation and, of course, your indulgence in this matter. Attorney Eckert, you may proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Accordingly, ABR's team has a strong working knowledge of Hovensa LLC, its assets, and its prior operations. In addition, members of ABR's team have many years of experience in working with the Environmental Protection Agency in connection with brownfields and industrial operations. This experience has led to a good understanding of the St. Croix environment, as well as a working relationship with both the EPA Region 2 and the Virgin Islands Department of Planning and Natural Resources. Once reconfigured, the St. Croix refinery will process at least 300,000 barrels per day of light sweet crude. Operations will be much cleaner and greener than in the past, when the refinery was used to process heavy sour crude. As such, ABR will not use and intends to dismantle the delayed coker unit at the refinery. After an approximately 18-month construction phase, during which we expect approximately 1,000 workers to be on site, ABR VI will employ no less than 500 full-time employees and will support no less than 100 subcontracted positions at the refinery. I would like to take a moment now to introduce you to ABR's principals, all of whom are seated before you this afternoon. First, Senators, immediately to my right, I would like to introduce Robert Moore. Mr. Moore serves as Executive Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Atlantic Basin Refining. Mr. Moore has over 30 years of business experience in corporate management and international energy trading. Throughout his career, he has negotiated, executed, and overseen energy transactions around the globe, including doing business with many of OPEC's members. Mr. Moore has successfully worked for and managed several large energy trading groups that participate in the international crude oil, petroleum products, electric power, and natural gas markets, including the Sun Oil Trading Company, Marubeni Inc., Castle Oil Corporation, Reliant Energy Inc., and Bank of Montreal. Mr. Moore has successfully negotiated deals for raw material supply, refinery processing, term product supply, oil terminal construction, and asset acquisitions. Mr. Moore is regularly retained by large hedge funds to advise on trading strategies and risk management. Mr. Moore has provided energy trading and risk management expertise to the Financial Services Committee and the Oversight and Government Reform Committee of the United States House of Representatives. He has given lectures to major universities, utility and energy executive forums, and trade groups on various topics including energy markets, trading techniques, and risk management. He has been interviewed by leading energy trade journals and magazines. A former member of the New York Mercantile Exchange, Mr. Moore holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration with a major in accounting from Bloomsburg University of Pennsylvania. He is also a member of the advisory board of Bloomsburg University's School of Business. Next, seated immediately behind me to my right, I am pleased to introduce John A. Jack Thomas. Mr. Thomas serves as Executive Managing Director of Atlantic Basin Refining. Mr. Thomas is no stranger to the island of St. Croix and the territory of the Virgin Islands. As a senior partner in St. Croix Renaissance Group LLP, Mr. Thomas has been responsible for the environmental mitigation and permitting for a plethora of issues related to the former activities of the Harvey Alumina facility, directly adjacent to the Hovensa property. Mr. Thomas has extensive experience and strong relationships with the VI DPNR and EPA Region 2. Mr. Thomas has had strong commercial relationships with Hovensa and personal relationships with Hovensa's senior management for many years. Mr. Thomas is also the president of Brownfields Recovery Corp. And was the president and founder of Environmental Reclamation, Inc. in 1991 to 2005. Mr. Thomas has more than 30 years of experience in real estate development and marketing, and over 20 years in environmental site assessment, permitting, redevelopment, remediation, insurance, and litigation. Mr. Thomas has served as the oversight representative for a large commercial portfolio of Massachusetts contingency plan priority sites, playing a direct role in the development of remediation alternatives and negotiations with regulators, insurers, lenders, buyers, and sellers. He has extensive experience in the evaluation of environmentally impacted real estate, environmental damages, and cost recovery. This comprehensive understanding of environmental regulations has enabled Mr. Thomas to create economic opportunity from otherwise infeasible projects both in New England and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Over the years, Mr. Thomas, through Brownfields Recovery Corp., has acquired, remediated, and successfully repositioned commercial, industrial, environmentally impacted properties from companies such as Bayer Agfa, ECCO, Northeast Utilities, and Alcoa Alumina. Next, Mr. President and Honorable Senators, I am proud to introduce you to Mr. William Forster, seated 2 seats to my right. Mr. Forster serves as Managing Director of Atlantic Basin Refining. Mr. Forster has been an investment banker and investor for over 40 years, the most recent 23 years of which Mr. Forster has been an independent investor, founding and financial successful companies in the energy and environmental services fields. Mr. Forster began his career at Lehman Brothers, where he spent 16 years. Mr. Forster began in the firm's energy department, where he spent 7 years and then went on to head 2 departments, the High Yield Bond Corporate Finance Department and the Financial Restructuring Department in the Investment Banking Division. In 1990, Mr. Forster resigned to focus on the development of new ventures in the energy field. As an investor, Mr. Forster has been engaged in such ventures as the startup of a successful oil and gas exploration and production business, which was later sold to Warburg Pincus, the restructuring and redevelopment of a niche environmental oil field services company, of which he serves major oil companies internationally, and the pre-development of metallurgical coal reserves. As an independent investment banker, Mr. Forster has advised an independent publicly traded oil exploration and production company for 9 years as it grew in enterprise value from $45 to $483 million before acting as the senior financial advisor on its sale. Mr. Forster was the co-founder and co-chairman of the board and initial CEO of Cheniere Energy, Inc. Mr. Forster served as chairman of the audit committee of Equity Oil Company until its sale to Whiting Petroleum. Mr. Forster served as chairman of the board of trustees of Mystic Seaport Museum from 2001 to 2007. In addition, Mr. Forster has served on the boards of directors of numerous publicly traded companies. Mr. Forster has an A.B. cum laude in economics from Harvard College and an MBA from the Harvard Business School. Next, I am pleased to introduce you to Mr. Stephen Schmitz, seated directly behind me. Mr. Schmitz serves as a managing director of Atlantic Basin Refining. Mr. Schmitz has over 30 years of experience in the petroleum refining industry, having held a variety of positions in management, trading, and corporate planning. Prior to the formation of Atlantic Basin Refining, Mr. Schmitz managed U.S. business development activities for Glencore U.S. Limited, where Mr. Schmitz focused on refinery acquisitions, inventory management deals, and terminal development. In some way, shape, or form, Mr. Schmitz has been involved in virtually every refinery transaction effected under the U.S. flag over the past 15 years. As a core member of the PBF Energy, Costco Refining, and Hill Petroleum refinery acquisition teams, Mr. Schmitz has acquired, assimilated, and operated over 15 refineries. This experience has led to an expertise in restructuring, refinery management, modeling, risk management, and the development and execution of refinery hedging programs. Mr. Smits has a BS in Chemical Engineering from Lehigh University and a Master's of Business Administration from Southern Methodist University. Finally, as stated earlier, I serve as Managing Director for Legal and Governmental Affairs for Atlantic Basin Refining. I am the founder and sole shareholder of Eckert PC, a Virgin Islands law firm, where I practice in the areas of commercial, corporate, and real estate transactions and general commercial and real estate litigation. I'm licensed to practice law in the Virgin Islands and in the state of Delaware. Upon graduating law school in 2004, I worked at the global top 20 firm of Reed Smith LLP, where I primarily worked in the corporate restructuring and bankruptcy group, and also spent a good deal of time with the litigation group. I graduated cum laude from the Widener University School of Law in Delaware with a Juris Doctor and a certificate with honors in the law of business organizations. While at Widener, I served as an editor of the Delaware Journal of Corporate Law. Prior to law school, I served on the staff of the Committee on Education and Workforce of the U.S. House of Representatives in the 104th Congress. I received my Bachelor of Arts with a major in politics from St. Joseph's University in Philadelphia, PA. Also with us today are William C. Creighton, Bill Creighton, seated immediately to Mr. Forster's right. Mr. Creighton is with Samsung Engineering. Also seated to my left is David Roberts, the CEO and owner of Sun Constructors VI, and seated all the way at the end is Mr. Keith Gautreaux, who is Vice President of Sun Constructors VI. Mr. President, Honorable Senators, having now introduced you to the principles of Atlantic Basin Refining, I would like to turn our testimony over to Mr. William Forster to walk you through ABR's plans for Hovensa LLC and the St. Croix Refinery, and to provide a summary of the operating agreement.
Mr. Forster, correct?
Yes.
Okay, you now recognize your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Mr. President and honorable senators of the 30th Legislature. My name, as you've heard, is William Forster, and it's my pleasure to be before you today.
Excuse me, Mr. Forrester, one moment. You were saying to me? Oh, pull the mic closer so that she can hear you.
Oh, move my chair up.
Yeah.
That helps.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, proceed.
Most importantly, ABR will convert Hovensa LLC into a strong and flexible merchant refining company. It will be capable of fluidly responding to shifting markets, shifting global economics, and shifting sources of feedstock. As part of converting Hovensa LLC into a strong and flexible merchant refiner, ABR will cause Hovensa LLC to reconfigure the St. Croix refinery to process light sweet crude, primarily from the United States. ABR's contracting team for the reconfiguration of the St. Croix refinery is led by Samsung Engineering, who will serve as the lead engineering, procurement, and construction, or EPC, firm for all diligence and construction matters in connection with the reconfiguration of the refinery. Samsung Engineering, one of the largest EPC firms in the world, has built numerous grassroots refineries, aromatic plants, heavy oil upgrading plants, and clean fuel plants. Samsung Engineering is a trusted partner to major state oil companies, such as Saudi Arabia's Saudi Aramco, the United Arab Emirates ADNOC, and Algeria's Sonatrach. In recognition of its world-leading reputation as a fully matured EPC firm, Samsung Engineering was recently contracted to build the largest aromatics plant in the world, as well as to single-handedly perform utility and off-site management for a $10 billion refinery complex in the UAR, in the United Arab Emirates. Samsung Engineering is an expert in the development of advanced refineries facilities. ABR will also be assisted by Sun Contractors, an affiliate of XL Sun Contractors. XL Sun has successfully completed thousands of projects, including refinery and petrochemical process units, upstream oil and gas facilities, environmental infrastructure, and many types of manufacturing facilities. XL Sun is no stranger to St. Croix to the St. Croix refinery, nor is it a stranger to the Virgin Islands generally, having worked on a variety of projects in the territory. As well, Wyatt Field Service Company, a very familiar name on St. Croix, will play an important role in the reconfiguration of the refinery. Wyatt's clients span a wide range of the largest names in the petrochemicals industry, including ExxonMobil, Citgo, BP, Shell, DuPont, Invista, Dow, Murphy, Suncor, and Coke, to name some of them. Wyatt routinely leads turnaround projects ranging from 20 to 400 craftsmen per shift, including boilermakers, pipe fitters, and welders. ABR's reconfiguration of the St. Croix refinery to process light sweet crude will result in much cleaner processes and an overall much cleaner and greener refinery. Under ABR's ownership, Hovensa LLC will not operate and expects to entirely dismantle the delayed coker unit. ABR's products will include ultra-low sulfur fuels such as ultra-low sulfur jet fuel, 2015 compliant ship's bunker fuel, low sulfur gasoline, and diesel fuel. Once reconfigured, the St. Croix refinery will be truly state-of-the-art, having been reconfigured to capitalize on the U.S. shale boom. Initially, the reconfigured refinery will process 300,000 barrels of crude oil a day. Refining light sweet crude, mostly from the U.S., will increase refinery flexibility and profitability while reducing power demand, reducing fuel use, and reducing emissions dramatically. ABR's timeline for this restart of the refinery basically is divided into 3 phases, as you heard earlier from Attorney General Frazier. First, upon closing, the refinery will undergo a thorough study to be led and performed by Samsung Engineering to establish the most efficient way to move forward toward reconfiguration of the refinery. This study could take 6 to 9 months. Samsung's EPC study of the refinery will culminate in the negotiation and execution of a turnkey construction contract where Samsung will commit to reconfiguring the refinery within certain parameters to be completed by a certain date at a certain cost. Simultaneously with, and ending perhaps shortly thereafter, will be a financing phase which is not mentioned in the typewritten remarks. But simultaneously in this first phase, we will be completing our negotiations with the financing sources who will provide us the funding that you heard about earlier, that we estimate to be approximately $1 million to $1.25 million. And those funds will come from, what did I say? I'm way off. Multiply it by 1,000. $1 billion to $1.25 billion. That financing will come, generically speaking, from a group of large project financing banks, and will undoubtedly be led by a large international bank that typically arranges financings of this magnitude. And we are already in discussions with institutions that would like to be considered to do that with us. In addition, we will finance the balance of that with that amount of money with equity type financing, which will come from private investors, and we're already in discussions with different sources, potential sources for equity for that. Those sources are awaiting the results of the study that Samsung will do, because until we know what the final budget is, we don't know what the final amounts are, and we also don't know what the final yields are that the refinery will produce, given various crude slates, and so it's a work in progress at this point in time. But we are very pleased with the response that we have preliminarily, which is a function of a combination of our management, and our senior management will be drawn from a combination of the principals of ABR sitting here today, other executives outside the industry, inside the industry but outside of the Hovensa ABR orbit, who have expressed an interest in joining later on, and very importantly, a subset of the senior executives who presently or have previously worked for Hovensa. So we're marrying up quite a strong team, the management team. They're also impressed by the assets. The Hess refinery is an extremely valuable property, and it just needs to be reconfigured, and the financing sources are impressed by Samsung and the fact that Samsung wants to do this project. So we have that with us, and the business plan based on the assumptions looks very viable. and it's dependent, of course, upon those assumptions being demonstrated by the study and market conditions remaining favorable, but we expect that the shale oil revolution is going to continue, that U.S. light sweet is going to remain comparatively attractively priced, and that will continue to support the favorable economics that are in our financial models and business plan. So that is also going on in that first phase, and it was not mentioned in the typewritten remarks, but I wanted to add that. The second phase is upon execution of the turnkey contract and receipt of the financing commitments that were alluded to earlier or mentioned earlier. Then what happens is that Samsung will start the construction phase immediately. That phase is thought to take probably about 18 months from start to finish. And during that time, Samsung expects that we will have approximately 1,000 workers engaged in the reconfiguration of the refinery. And then finally, after the restart, we will be processing at the St. Croix refinery 300,000 barrels a day of light sweet crude. And as you have heard during this phase, ABR has committed to the government of the Virgin Islands to employ at least 600 full-time employees, of which at least 500 will be direct employees and the balance subcontractors. The operating agreement provides that within 1 year of restart, 3/4 of ABR's full-time employees must qualify as residents of the Virgin Islands. That's good business for ABR. Just makes sense. And ABR is deeply committed to employing Virgin Islanders. ABR is deeply committed to recruiting former Hovensa employees from within the Virgin Islands and those who will return to the territory but who have left to find work elsewhere in the wake of the 2012 work stoppage. Pursuant to the operating agreement proposed today for ratification, ABR expects the USVI to ultimately gain more than $100 million a year in annual tax revenues from the refining operations after the restart. In addition to the taxes to be paid under the operating agreement, there will be employee payroll withholding under ABR's ownership. And Hovensa will continue its long-standing practice of meaningful giving and assistance to local charitable and community endeavors. From community festivals and events to charitable nonprofit organizations, ABR will ensure Hovensa's support of the local community. The operating agreement before you today is built around a few key concepts. First, as you've heard, ABR has strict timelines within which to ensure that ABR VI's restart of the St. Croix refinery is accomplished. So there's strict timelines. Second is, if those timelines are not timely met, each of the 3 milestone events that were discussed in the operating agreement, there are strict penalties for failure to meet those milestones. Third, ABR is going to pay into a site restoration fund so that in the event that someday the refinery stops production again, ABR is required to restore the site of the refinery using those funds which have been placed in the site restoration fund. Fourth key point, all payments required to be made by ABR VI must be guaranteed by ABR VI's parent and ultimate parent entities, together with third-party financial assurances, which may be in the form of a letter of credit. Fifth key point, all of ABR VI's performance requirements are secured by a security interest in all of ABR's real estate and the personal property, the equipment, that sort of thing that goes with the refinery. In lieu of taxes, ABR VI must pay fixed payments and variable payments to the government of the Virgin Islands, plus other sums that were enumerated earlier, which will be paid at closing. Effective date. This agreement does not become effective until it's been signed, ratified by this body, and upon proof that ABR VI has deposited $1 million into escrow with an escrow account agreed upon between the parties, and the purchase by the ABR from the sellers has been closed and completed. Closing requirements. In addition to the customary transactional closing deliveries, such as certificate of accuracy of reps and warranties, etc., ABR is required to pay the government up to $5 million to cover the GVI's costs and expenses, deliver to the government of the Virgin Islands a blanket security agreement and mortgage lien covering the oil refinery and related facilities and all improvements constructed thereon, as well as certain personal property, certificates of insurance, certification that ABR has aggregate common equity of $5 million, and proof that ABR has funds to perform through the financing certification date, which I will discuss below. Talk about the restart and costs. Government has to retain, as required that we retain, a reputable refining engineering firm with experience reconfiguring and rehabilitating world-scale oil refineries to perform the EPC study. As noted, ABR will engage Samsung, one of the largest and most respected EPC firms in the world, and Bill Creighton, representing Samsung, is here with us today. Within 10 months, ABR must provide to the government a copy of the restart plan, the restart cost estimate, and the contract, the EPC contract for engineering, procurement, and construction. That EPC contract applies to this whole reconfiguration of the refinery. The EPC firm must independently certify that the restart plan and the terms of the EPC contract are reasonable, and that the restart plan will be performed in accordance with international standards. If ABR fails to perform as required in connection with the restart certification date within 10 months of closing, then it must pay $1 million a month to extend the date or otherwise be in default under this agreement. Then there's the restart financing. No later than 15 months after closing, ABRVI must demonstrate and certify in writing that it has obtained binding commitments to provide funding for the costs associated with the reconfiguration. Provided that ABRVI has done everything it can do in good faith to obtain all necessary governmental approvals for operations, the financing certification date may be extended up to 5 months. That would only be because of market conditions, in my opinion, at that point. If ABR is not able to timely meet financing certification date, it may extend the financing certification date for up to 5 months, as I said, by paying $125,000 per month to the government, or else be in default. Restart of the refinery. Immediately on the financing certification date, ABRVI must immediately commence and expeditiously continue until completion the implementation of the restart plan in order to restore the refinery to the operational condition so that the refinery begins commercial operations on or before the operations commencement deadline. This means the refinery must be able to process not less than $300,000 a day in accordance with all applicable laws, regulations, and construction to a nameplate capacity of 350,000 barrels a day. ABR must restart the refinery within 24 months after the financial certification date. If ABR does not timely perform in accordance with the operations commencement deadline, and incidentally there's a typo in there, you'll notice financial certification should read operations commencement deadline. In any event, if the refinery is not started within 24 months after financial certification, ABR may extend the date by paying $1 million a month for a limited period of time, or else be in default under the agreement. After restart, ABR must provide monthly reports to the GVI to inform the GVI of the total number of barrels of crude oil processed and refined each month. In the operating agreement, there's a definition of refinery idling event. It means an intentional stoppage of operations for greater than 90 days for reasons other than turnarounds or other maintenance requirements or an act of God. Upon the occurrence of a refinery idling event, ABRVI must pay $500,000 monthly, in addition to all other required payments for up to 6 months. After 6 months, the refinery idling event turns into an extended refinery idling event. An extended refinery idling event means a refinery idling event that continues for more than 180 days, and upon the occurrence of an extended refinery idling event, ABRVI must commence good faith negotiations with GVI concerning future operations, sale, or closure of the refinery. If the parties can't reach agreement after 90 days of good faith negotiations, then the extended refinery idling event will constitute a breach, and during the pendency of an extended refinery idling event, ABRVI must continue to meet all of its payment obligations under the agreement. Other obligations. ABRVI must operate the truck rack. ABR must provide discounted fuel to the government and the public for purchase in tanker truck quantities according to the fuel price formula. ABR VI expressly agrees that if it violates its truck rack obligations, that the government may obtain an injunction without posting of a bond. ABR VI must maintain in storage at the refinery not less than 3 times the average monthly fuel needs of the USVI, including aviation fuel, gasoline, and diesel fuel. ABR VI will accommodate access to Lime Tree Bay Channel for vessels destined to Bomba Alec the VI Port of Authority container dock and the Gordon Finch Molasses Pier. If requested, and it will be subject to U.S. Coast Guard authorizations, Department of Homeland Security regulations, other federal, territorial, and territorial governmental authorizations, provided that the ABR VI vessels will have a priority and such traffic shall be subject to all channel rules imposed by ABR VI on all ship traffic utilizing the channel, as may be amended from time to time. With respect to submerged lands, beginning in 1976, certain permits were issued to HOVIC over a period of time by the U.S. Department of Interior, the USVI Department of Conservation and Cultural Affairs, and Coastal Zone Management to allow for dredging in Lime Tree Bay for the creation of new dock facilities and other lands necessary to support the refining operations. Because of federal law, transfer of title of those so-called submerged lands to the refinery was then prohibited. Therefore, control and use by the refinery of the submerged lands were authorized in the form of a lease to HOVIC from the GBI. For the purpose of this agreement and good order, the term of the submerged land lease has been made consistent with the operating agreement. Employment. From the restart date through the term of the operating agreement, ABR VI must employ at least 600 full-time employees, of which at least 500 will be direct employees and the balance subcontractors. From the first anniversary of the restart date throughout the rest of the term of the operating agreement, at least 75% of ABR's full-time employees must be U.S. Virgin Islands residents. Residence requirements are to be checked and confirmed annually by the Commissioner of Labor. Individuals who were formerly employed by Hovenza or HOVIC for work at or regarding the refinery in the USVI in the 5 years preceding the effective date shall be considered USVI residents. Training, something we're very interested in. Throughout the term of this agreement, ABR VI will create and operate at its own cost and expense training programs at the St. Croix Vocational Training Center for the purpose of maximizing employment opportunities at the oil refinery and related facilities for Virgin Islands residents. Training programs will teach refinery-related trades to qualified U.S. Virgin Islands residents, and those subjects will include refinery safety, refinery operations, general refinery maintenance, environmental management, welding, instrument fitting, pipe fitting, and electrical maintenance. And this training will be made available to high school students and graduates of the University of the Virgin Islands, and trainees referred by the U.S. Virgin Islands Department of Labor. I'd like to go over the financial obligations of ABR. You have heard that there is a fixed payment schedule. It begins at $14 million a year for years 1 through 6, and then rises in years 7 through 10 to $32 million. Thereafter, it's $36 million for years 11 through 15, $40 million a year fixed payments guaranteed from years 16 to 22. The first renewal term is for 10 years. The fixed cost it starts at $45 million in the first year, and then adjusts annually according to the Consumer Price Index. In the second term, the fixed payment will be either continue to increase annually according to the Consumer Price Index, or it shall be established by mutual agreement or binding arbitration, as the Attorney General stated. In the event that ABR were to breach, it didn't produce its engineering certification at the end of the roughly 10-month period, then the fixed payments would immediately go up to $15 million a year for 3 years, and then $30 million in each year thereafter. If there were a breach following the financing certification deadline, $15 million fixed for the first 3 years following the breach, and then $30 million each year thereafter. If there were a breach after financing had been arranged, and there was either a failure to restart or start or restart after an extended refinery idling event, then the fixed payment would be $15 million for every year following the breach until the financing had been repaid, and then it would move up to $22 million. The variable payments, you have heard, they are basically, it's a progressive income tax scheme or schedule, and it is one that grows over time. In year 7, it's 10% of the USVI taxable income in excess of $200 million up to $500 million, 12.5% of the excess above $500 million. In year 8 through 10, it's 7.5% of taxable income up to $100 million. Then it's 10% from 100 to 500 million, and above 500 it's 12.5%. Then after the 10th year, beginning in the 11th year and thereafter, it is 10% of the first $100 million of income, 13% of the income between 100 and 250 million, 20% from 250 million to 500 million, and 25% above, with the reduction that the Attorney General mentioned of 5 percentage points in the event that we are meeting the employment requirements. If there is a breach, however, it climbs faster, so that the income tax becomes immediately 5% of taxable income up to $50 million, 15% of taxable income between 50 and 100, 20% between 100 and 500, and 25% above. There is a provision for net operating loss carryforwards, mentioned as NOLs in here. And the NOLs are included in the determination of the ABR in the calculation of the U.S. Virgin Island taxable income, and they can go back for a period of up to 3 years. But in any event, no NOL carryback provisions will be allowed such that we would have to make less than zero tax. Payments to the sellers. In addition, any payments made to the sellers constitute gross sales proceeds under the Fourth Amendment Agreement. And therefore, simultaneously with the payment of any such payments, ADRBI shall pay to the government of the Virgin Islands 20% of the value of any such payments up to a total of $50 million. Site Restoration Fund. As you heard, the ABRI at closing will set up an escrow account, which initially will put in a deposit of $500,000 on the closing date, and then $5 million a year, except the payments will be made in the first 10 years, only if ABRBI is in non-monetary default or payment default, in which case ABRBI is liable for payments, to make payments, and to do so for all subsequent years. Security interest. ADRBI is required to grant a security interest to the government of the Virgin Islands in the oil refinery and related facilities and improvements constructed thereon, including all fixtures attached thereto and personal property required to operate the refinery. There is a prohibition on payments to ABR stockholders if money is outstanding to the government of the Virgin Islands. Specifically, neither ABR or its parent company, ABR Holdings LLC, or ABRBI may make any payments to any of their equity holders if any payments to the GVI are due and outstanding. Financial assurance. ABRBI's parent and ultimate parent entities absolutely and unconditionally guarantee ABRBI's obligations under the agreement. In addition to the guarantees of ABRBI's parent and ultimate parent entities, ABRBI must provide separate third-party financial assurances, and they go in time frames. First, the first third-party financial assurance must guarantee ABRBI's ability to timely pay all fixed payments from the closing date through the financial certification date. Then secondly, they must provide financial assurance, there has to be financial assurance provided of ABRBI's ability to timely pay all fixed payments from the closing of the financing, which was what happened at the end of the first period, through the date of the operations commencement deadline. And in the event that ABRBI elects to extend any of these milestones, financial assurance, those short monthly milestone extensions, financial assurance must be provided to guarantee ABRBI's ability to make payments through that extension period. And finally, if there were or upon the occurrence of any payment default or non-monetary default, ABRBI must provide third-party financial assurance sufficient to guarantee timely payment of all fixed payments and site restoration payments, both, for the 12 months following such default. Insurance. ABR must keep in place insurance products consistent with industrial operations of the size and magnitude of the St. Croix refinery. Taxes paid by ABRBI in the form of fixed payment, variable payment, and site restoration fund payments, and other payments due hereunder, are in lieu of other forms of taxes, except that ABRBI is required to pay income withholding taxes, FICA taxes, lease and permit payments related to the submerged lands, any user fees of general application, any tax or fee imposed by the United States, and withholding taxes of general application imposed under workmen's compensation, unemployment insurance, and other similar employee benefit legislation. With respect to reporting, audits, and inspections, ABR Holdings and ABR must provide to the government annual financial statements audited by a reputable audit firm, acceptable to the government, and unaudited quarterly financial statements. All tax and other annual filings must be made whether or not payment is due. ABRBI must provide quarterly employment information to the USVI Office of Management and Budget and USVI Department of Labor for purposes of confirming compliance with the employment requirements of the operating agreement. In the event that ABRBI commits a non-monetary default, which includes a stoppage of refining sufficient to constitute an extended refinery idling event, the agreement provides for a process that limits ABRBI's permission to operate the terminal pending restoration and remediation of the refinery site. In the event that despite ABR's best efforts, ABR is unable to obtain all required governmental authorizations to operate the refinery, then the parties are required to negotiate in good faith to discuss alternative uses for the refinery. So in closing, Mr. President and honorable senators, it is now a new day for the Hovensa refinery. ABR's plan for the refinery will deliver a cleaner and greener operation than has ever been in place on the South Shore. We will process at least 300,000 barrels of light sweet crude. We will dismantle the coker. We will support at least 600 full-time family wage jobs. We will create and sponsor training programs to ensure Virgin Islanders are properly equipped to capitalize on the employment opportunities presented by the new reconfiguration of this refinery. And we intend to give generously in the community, and we look forward to a long and prosperous partnership with the government of the Virgin Islands in the form set forth in the operating agreement. We respectfully request the 30th Legislature of the Virgin Islands ratify the operating agreement at Wednesday's special session. And we look forward now to answering any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Forrester, for your testimony. Will there be anyone else from the ABR company to present testimony at this time?
Yes, Mr. President.
Mr. Attorney Eckert?
I believe Mr. Creighton wanted to say a few words about Samsung and the engineering aspects of the plan.
Mr. Creighton does not have written testimony, correct?
He does not have written testimony. No.
Okay, colleagues, just for your information, he's speaking without written testimony. Okay, Mr. Creighton, the chair recognizes you for your testimony.
Good evening, Mr. President, honorable senators, ladies and gentlemen, and fellow veterans. Good evening. My name is Bill Creighton. I'm an engineer with 35 years of experience in the hydrocarbons industry, in operations, unit operations, as well as international general management, and also, and now, as engineering, procurement, and construction management services provider with Samsung Engineering. I'm located at their Samsung Engineering Americas headquarters in Houston, Texas. Thank you for letting me join this important hearing this evening. Samsung was founded in 1970 as Korea Engineering, after the devastation, of course, of prolonged Korean conflict, to rebuild the country. Since that time has grown to be within the top 13 international contractors, as rated by the Engineering News Record, a periodical that's well respected and known in the engineering community, and also fourth internationally in petroleum. Samsung Engineering and partners are committed to safety, as evidenced by 66 million accident-free hours at the Sonatrach Skikda refinery expansion project in Algeria. Conditions similar to what we would expect at the current Hovensa refinery. We're also committed to environment and community. We're recognized by Platts in 2013 for global stewardship. Specifically, I accepted the award for Eco-Generation Program, which reaches out to the youth of the communities in 141 countries in which we do business. Samsung employs over 8,500 engineers in 36 countries. Our 2013 revenues were $9.3 billion, and we're working off a backlog of over $15 billion US dollars. That was as December 2013. Approximately 20% of our revenue is refining-based services, so we're very, very familiar with this industry. We are an engineering, procurement, and construction management contractor, as the Attorney General mentioned, and we are highly experienced in lump sum contracting. We did as much as we could in the time was available to us, a tour of the refinery. We reviewed mountains of data in the interim, and we believe that this reconfiguration is not only possible, but we've done some front-end engineering to ascertain and come to a conclusion that this is a viable project, and we're interested to move forward with this project. We also recognize, though, that we need to work with contractors, subcontractors that have experience at the refinery, and specifically experience at the Hovensa refinery. As has been mentioned earlier in testimony, the partners include Sun, Excel, which are with us this evening, as well as Wyatt, who has turnaround experience at the Hovensa refinery. Samsung Engineering also feels that the timeline that's been outlined to you earlier this evening is reasonable. We are conducting an engineering procurement construction study over the past 8 weeks. We also agree that the construction phase should employ about 1,000 constructors in order to manage the reconfiguration, the revamp, and the restart of the plant. Currently, as I mentioned, we are doing work. We're looking at the reconfiguration plans of going from heavy crude to light sweet, and performing linear programming that gives a good outlook as to what the product's mix might look like. In our plans, the coker will not be used, and I think that's important, again, to the slate of crudes and also to the engineering services we're providing. Once again, thank you for opportunity for this testimony and any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Creighton, correct? Bill Creighton?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Next time in the future, make sure you have written testimony. My colleagues are spoiled with that, right? So, I know it's on the record, but it's important that we have it for the requirement of our rules.
Yes, sir.
And they're very, no, they're correct. The rules require testimony before the committee. And so, in the future, make sure you have something written in the event you want to testify again, so that there are no issues here. Okay, we are going to take a quick break because I understand the stenographers are going to tag team at this point. So the committee will take a quick recess, and at the commencement of the recess, the end of the recess, we're going to dismiss. It can be dismissed now. We're going to bring up the company Monarch, who was asked to testify, and Freedom New York represented by Mr. Henry Thomas. All right, thank you very much. Senator Gittens, you recognize a point of inquiry?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to make sure, when you say that they're excused, I want to make sure that these testifiers aren't leaving, because there's a lot of questions to be asked, and I don't want for them to believe that they're excused, and then when we're looking for them, they're gone.
Correct. Thank you, Senator Gittens, for that clarification. Excuse me to be from this portion of the hearing, but you will not be excused from the hearing. Right? So we'll take a quick 5-minute recess for change of tape and testifiers.
Mr. President.
A Monarch? Okay.
Yes, Monarch Energy.
Okay, you're recognized for your testimony.
Thank you. I'm Darrell Hardy. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, thank you for the opportunity to address you. We appreciate the invitation to come and to state the process that we've been through trying to acquire the refinery. With me is our CEO, Bob Schrader. We will speak in an effort to expedite this process. We're going to shorten our testimony. We're going to shorten our presentation, but we'll run up the script if that's allowable.
It is. You may proceed.
Beautiful. Beautiful. We came into this process in an effort to, as most people have, we watched what Big Oil has done. In 2012, Hovensa closed its doors, and we assumed that Big Oil was going to come in and take over. We watched the process. We have very dear loved ones here, Cruisins, that have asked us to watch the process. We assured them shortly after 2012, Big Oil will come in and take over. No problem. Don't worry about it. They're going to come. It's a great refinery. It's a great location. For many reasons, Big Oil will want this. We watched a month go by, and Big Oil did not come to the table. So that was our first red flag. We went and started to inquire further as to why Hovensa wasn't acquired yet. Constant persistence, as you know, in the oil business, at the top, everyone talks. As in most industries, everyone talks. And then we started to learn about the environmental aspects that come with Hovensa. And at that point, we realized why so many people at the table had walked away from the table. Before we approached the appropriate parties to purchase Hovensa, we addressed the environmental. We went to Monarch Environmental first, because you must start with the cleanup. You must start with what's necessary for what the people have gone through for 20 years. That is our first commitment. Our second commitment was the money. You cannot buy something without money. So we went and got the money. And then we approached the appropriate parties and said we are ready to not just take over Monarch, but we're ready to reinvest in St. Croix. Reinvesting in its people through our foundation that will be set here. And we have, you have our presentation, you see the numbers that we're putting next to it that are direct investments. We've seen your schools, we have 11 public schools here, we have healthcare issues. We know what Leon has, and we know what Hovensa used to mean to St. Croix. We see the arms, we see what it's like now without it, and we would like to bring that back. I was misquoted in a statement, and I want to make it clear in one of the papers that said that I wanted to return St. Croix to its former glory. I have no way to speak in that manner. I want to make that clear to the public. I would like to return Hovensa to its former glory, because when Hovensa was in its former glory, St. Croix was thriving. That is what I want. I will let our CEO speak.
Thank you, Darrell. Mr. President, fellow senators, thank you for your invitation for us to be here. I just wanted to go quickly to not reiterate a lot of the testimony has been said already. A lot of studies been done. A lot of people have seen the refinery and they agree that it should be an ongoing concern. We share that. So we could stop all the testimony there. We share that agreement. We should move forward. It's also been said that there's been many refineries that changed hands over last several years. That was done for a reason. There's been a tremendous landscape change in the oil industry. Big oil used to be known as the Seven Sisters. It used to be that only the big oil companies own refineries. Well, that's changed over the last few years. And the reason being, the big oil wants to go to exploration, and then they all follow each other. So it allows for smaller companies that have a different vision to take over existing refineries and make it worthwhile. That's the vision that we shared. There's been a lot of statements saying, why were you so late in the process? Well, I'm just telling our side of the story on the process. Normally an investment firm, and I was involved with one in the Trainer, Pennsylvania, where Bank of America was an investment advisor. They predetermine who is going to buy the refinery based on past experience, possibly financial capability. However, a lot of those people that are on that list aren't in refining anymore. They don't want to own refineries. The example that I'm giving of the Trainer refinery, it turned out an airline bought it. They had no idea an airline was going to come up. So my point is, there's companies out there that could purchase refineries and have the capability to do so, but the timing isn't always right. And that's what happened in our case. I said in the past I was never lucky enough to have a strategic decision and an opportunity cross on the same day. So it took us some time to get our team together. Speaking of the team, as we mentioned, the changeover in refineries, there is a plethora of a smart talent out there that have been in refining for years. A member of our team was a senior executive vice president of Gulf Oil. Now, if anybody could remember Gulf Oil, it's been that long ago, was a refinery that changed hands several times. It went to Chevron, to Sunoco, and is now called Philadelphia Energy Solutions, is combined with another department. So there are plenty of people out there. I'm not going to bore you with it, but we have a team that has, and I mentioned 3 people alone have over 100 years experience in the refining area. Monarch itself will be 25 years old as an ongoing concern. We strictly deal with oil companies and utility companies. So our remediation, our maintenance deals with ongoing concerns of the oil companies, both midstream, refinings, pipelines, as well as downstream. We work with the state agencies, environmental agencies, as well as the EPA on the issues to clean those up. So I'm just giving you that as far as as some of our qualifications, along with the rest of the team. As Darrell mentioned, we proposed to purchase a refinery, and we never got a chance to tell our story. So I appreciate Senator for inviting us to say where we are. Hopefully, our goal is to continue this process. I think it's been reported, and it's true, we have verified funds. We're not looking for time to start this. As I mentioned, the reason these big oil companies own these refineries before is because they're well capitalized. And they were talking, it's upwards of $1 billion a month to run a refinery properly. We showed the capability to do that, so we're ready to go. We have the experience to do it, and we would just like a chance. So that's all I can say.
I just want to add one thing, if I can.
Thank you. Mr. Darrell Hart? Hardy.
Yes.
Yes, recognize you.
The timetable, it's not a us versus them thing, it's what we bring to the table. The 6 to 9 months restart is what we're working, it's what we have put on paper. We have our own engineering team that will come down, we have not been granted access to the facility. Normally in a normal process of purchase, you show your funds, they vet your funds, and then you're provided a time of access. That was not done. So we have not physically been able to go to the facility or send our team down. If it was in the Senate's power to have us do it, we will have a team here tomorrow. We need that time. Our engineers get in there, 6 to 9 months, we're talking about restarting hiring. We're not talking about planning. We don't need to speak to anyone else. We've restarted refineries in the past. This isn't anything new. We've been a part of a lot of operations in the Philadelphia to Delaware area, which was before mentioned. Please verify what was mentioned earlier, because we are under oath. That's what I would say about that. We have a record of being able to clean up a problem. A lot of people are afraid of the name Superfund. So we went to the EPA directly. They're in Region 2 in Philadelphia. We're there as well. We talked to them directly. We know the directors who's in charge of your area. Flair Mills, Miles Flint. We spoke to them extensively in order to get our understanding, because the Superfund name scared a lot of people away. But it's not a Superfund site, it's a RCRA site. But it demands cleanup. It demands extraction of oils. It demands what has been done between Alumacor as well as Hovenza over the years. We have the capabilities to clean up while we're employing people to work, and that is our goal.
I wanted to, before I recognize the next testifier, once again, is what the committee would really like to hear. And you mentioned a few of these things in your comments, is your experience with the sales process, specifically. So that, that was one of the main reasons why you wanted to testify.
Yes, sir.
Okay? So, you want to continue?
Yes, I will continue.
Okay.
We contacted first we contacted Hess directly, because it was our understanding that Hess was the owner. We were in search of the owner. Ownership of this was we sent our team out first to find out who owns it, let's go purchase it. They came back, Hess, hold it, we understand that. So we went to New Jersey. That's where they are. And we spoke to an executive there who told us that it's out of our hands. It's being handled by Lazard. And we thought that was interesting. They said, yes, well, we're not in that. You should know that. We're not in that. I said, I do know that, but I thought you still were selling your property. So, because Hess has released a couple of refining properties. So we moved from them to Lazard. And we went through a lot of walls with Lazard. There was some misrepresentation in terms of who was really in charge of the sale. And that was another red flag for us, because Lazard is a well-respected company. And we could not understand this. We finally were instructed through Hess's attorney, Attorney Dudley, that the correct person that we need to speak to at Lazard. So we finally now at that point was able to make good communication with them. Upon communication, we've sent verified funds of $350 million to show that is just pretty much good faith money, saying here we have enough money to not just acquire it, but we should be allowed into the process. With every company, there is a backup cash credit facility. Ours is in the billions. That's not needed to show at that point. All that money was shown in an effort to get the package and get the ability to come down here and tour the refinery. That's the normal process. It took a month and a half before we got response back, and we've never received any permission or access to come down and see the refinery. Once again, another red flag. Why? So we pursued back through Lazard, trying to find out. We kept going up levels within Lazard, trying to get to why is this process this way. And they said, well, they were already in talks with the governor. And it was, government. And they were already so far down the line in negotiation. I said, but we were allowed into the process. I said, do they have exclusive? Is this an exclusive deal? Because you can sign an exclusive after a certain point in deals such as this. But Atlantic Basin was not granted an exclusive. So I said, well, then the bidding process is still open. Then why are we not given access? And once again, there was not an answer given, and we have moved on. And apparently, every company, we've been contacted by other companies that went through the same type of process, same type of walls and hurdles that we had to jump, and they don't understand it. And these are people in the oil business with capabilities the same as us to purchase and acquire this. I mean, we weren't, at that time of the game, we weren't the only people that wanted to purchase it. The process, in my opinion, is flawed, and I mean no disrespect in that, but we're here to find out who owns it. Is it for sale? We would like to purchase it, and we have the means to do so. Our intentions are to re-employ. Our means are also to reinvest in the people of St. Croix.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hardy, correct? Darrell Hardy. Next testifier. Mr. Creaky.
Well, two quick things. One, we are no strangers to Superfund. In St. Thomas, the Turpentine Run had to be cleaned up with Superfund money, and the Boboni now there. We are no strangers to Superfund money. But the most important thing that I wish that all of the senators would reflect on, the statement that was made, which is a fact. It is going to cost about $1 billion a month to purchase and process 300,000 barrels a day. Nowhere in the presentation made by the Attorney General are they ever talking about billion? 500,000 and them kind of potato chips money. We are grown folks today. We do not speak in pennies per barrels anymore. We speak in pennies per gallon. Pennies per barrel is $500,000 deals. Pennies per gallons is $600 million deals. Please remember that. When you look at this presentation again, there is nothing about it that says billion if they don't do this and they don't do that and they don't do the other. It is obvious that they're not going to be able to do it because it says on page 12, they ain't got the money.
Thank you, Mr. Creaky. Mr. Henry Chalmers, you recognize for your testimony.
Thank you. Mr. President of the Senate, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, thank you for having me here today. I would like to request that you accept my written document as my testimony. And I'm going to shorten everything today. But I do want to talk about the process. When I first came to being aware of the Virgin Islands needing or was going to do something with the refinery, I came down and requested to see the refinery so that we could make a decision on whether or not we wanted to use this refinery for some of the business that we have. We have businesses with nations who does not have refineries in their nation that as you have, but they have plenty of oil, plenty of LNG, and everything else. And they are clearly in need of a refinery that can process anywhere from 300,000 barrels to 600,000 barrels a day. Those nations that I'm talking about, and I am talking with about doing something with refineries. We wanted to do something with the Hess refinery, and we also participated in contacting Lazard. Unfortunately, Lazard poo-pooed everything. They did not want to have anyone come to the table, and they just brushed us off. When we requested to participate and to take some of the roadblocks that they had put into their document, we asked for a waiver, letting them know that we wouldn't mind signing the confidentiality agreement with them, but we did not want to sign some of the things that was in there that would shackle us, handcuff us, and muzzle us from talking and finding out what the true story about the investment would be. So we are here today with hopes that we can also come to the table and see if we can't bring billions of dollars to the table to process oil that we have ready to go today, not 2 years from now, today. We're ready to talk, we're ready to get started, and we'd like to know just how we could participate in the future in this project. We also have engineering teams that we are ready to bring over to look at and see the refinery if that's possible. So I thank you for allowing me to take some time today to let you know that there are others out there also that is willing to bring and to bring the whole Venza refinery back up to what it really can be. And we believe it was at least 650,000 barrels per day is what it was doing in its heyday. We looked at that. We saw that it had the land that we could bring more equipment and rebuild it if it needs to be, and take it from there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thomas, for your testimony. And at this time, colleagues, I will bring us to the end of this panel. And we'll take a quick 5-minute recess and bring up to the well as many that can hold the following persons: Attorney Ronald Russell, Esquire, Cletus Emmanuel, and the next thing is how to pronounce what after that. That's Neswa Neb Ka Rak.
Carl Christopher.
Yeah, that's correct. I did it right. Robert Schuster and Darrell Hart. Okay, you guys are ready. Okay, sorry. Robert Schuster, Ms. Pat Oliver, Attorney Kevin Reeves, and Mr. Percival Edwards, and the last person I